The second leg at the Bernabeu is about to kick off. After a crushing 0-3 defeat in London, Real Madrid enter this Champions League quarter-final with a challenge that seems almost impossible. No one denies that a 3-goal deficit is a shocker, but no one dares say it's over either, because that name on the other side is still Real Madrid. The Bernabeu, where Arsenal are about to march into, isn't just a stadium. It's a fortress, a sacred ground, a place where limits are shattered. Over the past 2 seasons, Real have lost only 5 home games across all competitions, scoring more than 100 goals here, a number reserved for no ordinary team. At the Bernabeu, history isn't written through routine victories but through breathtaking comebacks. Benzema's hat-trick against PSG, the stunning turnarounds against Chelsea and Manchester City, all of it etched into the fabric of this arena. And tonight, under the blazing Madrid sky, the Bernabeu waits to erupt once again, not just with flares, but with survival instinct and a spirit that simply refuses to die. Real step into the second leg, not just with the hope of turning things around, but with another weapon, the composure and steely mindset forged at the Bernabeu. This is where the extraordinary becomes reality, where the Champions League turns into pure magic. In the last 2 seasons, 2-0, 2-2, 2-2, 0-2, 3 and 2-0, 2-3, 2-0, 2-4, the Bernabeu has witnessed Real play 54 home matches, 40 wins, 9 draws, only 5 losses, and 106 goals scored, averaging over 2 goals per game. Every time Real take the field here, it's a storm, fierce, unpredictable, and full of emotion. It was here that Real were trailing PSG 0-2 after 60 minutes, only for Benzema to blow past Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe in a matter of moments. Here, Chelsea were up 3-0, only for Rodrigo to spark the comeback and Benzema to finish the job. Then came Manchester City. When all hope seemed lost, Rodrigo struck twice in a single fateful minute, and Real booked a spot in the final after a penalty shootout that left the world stunned. These things don't happen in ordinary stadiums. They only happen at the Bernabeu, and only with Real Madrid. Even down 0-3, a deficit rarely overturned in Champions League history, Real still have the Bernabeu. And if there's one place capable of making Arsenal tremble despite their commanding lead, it's this one. Real aren't alone in Madrid. They have history behind them, 4 stands ready to shake the earth, tens of thousands roaring every time the opponent touches the ball, and a team that's made a habit of coming back from the dead. No one can say for sure if Real will pull off another miracle, but no one dares rule it out either. For Real, impossible is just a dare. Ultras Madrid have promised to create a night like no other, a spectacle more emotional than football itself. The same fiery energy that carried Real past Atletico, PSG, and City is about to turn the Bernabeu into a cauldron for Arsenal, a place that once was a cathedral, now becoming a pressure cooker. All it takes is one early goal, one cloud of smoke, one deafening roar. These next 90 minutes will be a mental battle, a true test for the legs that have come from North London. After that embarrassing loss at the Emirates, Real Madrid are ready to strike back, and Arsenal better be on high alert. The Bernabeu has never been a place to breathe easy. The fans aren't just showing up, they're preparing to turn the Bernabeu into a real inferno. The Ultrasur, the infamous supporters who fill the sky with flares and flood Madrid's streets with black and white flags, turning every big match into a smoky, thunderous carnival, have vowed to deliver something never seen before. This won't just be football atmosphere, it'll be a full-on spiritual mobilization. In their 2-1 win over Atletico back in March, it was that same wild energy that fueled Real through the toughest moments. And now, facing an even greater challenge, hope isn't just pinned to the players on the pitch, but also to the fans in the stands, who'll be fueling them every step of the way. The Bernabeu has never just been a stadium. It's a modern-day Roman arena where warriors fight not only with strength, but with spirit, powered by tens of thousands of hearts. The Ultrasur are the engine behind that spirit, the ones who turn a football match into a sacred ritual. Arsenal, with young stars like Rice, Saka, and Gabriel Jesus, might hold a big advantage, but they're stepping into a space where even legends have tread carefully. If Real can strike within the first 10 minutes, the flames will rise fast. And if the Ultras keep their promise, these 90 minutes will be a brutal psychological test for any team, especially Arsenal. In a football world increasingly dominated by tactics and data, Real and the Bernabeu remain gloriously raw, where screams, smoke, and undying belief can shake any opponent. When the emotional battlefield reaches its peak, logic is often left behind. In this context, the stats remain cautious. 538 gives Real Madrid just a 9.3% chance of pulling off the comeback, a cold, hard number. ESPN put it bluntly, if this wasn't Real Madrid, people would be calling it Mission Impossible. Real even requested to move their La Liga fixture against Alaves to get more prep time, but the league refused, making them the only team in the quarterfinals not given an early weekend kickoff. Meanwhile, their rivals, Arsenal, PSG, Inter, and Barcelona, all received scheduling advantages. Despite the physical disadvantage, Real Madrid has never feared adversity. History proves it. They've come back from the dead not once, but 3 times. Against PSG in 2021/22, they were down 0-2 on aggregate after 150 minutes, before Benzema dropped a hat-trick and crushed Paris's dreams. Against Chelsea, they were trailing 3-4 at the Bernabeu until Rodrigo and Benzema pushed them into the semifinals. And against Manchester City, trailing in the 89th minute, they scored 3 goals in 6 minutes, leaving the football world stunned. For Real Madrid, Champions League nights are more than football. They're moments that bend destiny. Nobody thinks they should survive, and yet they do. So what creates that magic? Sports scientists point to one crucial factor: an early goal. Norwegian sports psychologist Professor Geir Jordet once said, "A first goal in a comeback doesn't just change the score, it makes the opponent question themselves." Liverpool's famous 4-0 over Barcelona at Anfield in 2019 is proof. Origi scored in the 7th minute. Klopp later admitted, "You don't need complex tactics, just a quick punch early on." And nobody understands that better than Real. In nearly every epic comeback, the first goal arrives within the first 20 minutes of the second half, when opponents are nervous but not yet alert enough to respond. That's when the Bernabeu stops being a stadium and turns into an invisible pressure cooker. And Carlo Ancelotti, the man who always looks like nothing phases him, is the master of managing those emotions, especially after setbacks. Ancelotti doesn't rant or drop bold statements after defeats. He simply said this: "When we go through pain together, that's when we become stronger than ever." It's not a line built for headlines, it's a whisper meant for the locker room. A quiet message to keep belief alive when the numbers say otherwise. In moments like that, reason fades. What leads the way is instinct, character, and a rare trait only a few clubs on earth possess: faith. Real Madrid is the only team that makes fans afraid to switch off the TV, that defies logic and keeps the impossible within reach. If Real scores early against Arsenal, a team built on coordinated pressing from the very first whistle, with a dynamic setup that suffocates opponents, everything changes. Ancelotti, usually a conservative tactician, will have to switch things up. He may opt for a 4-4-2 to break down Arteta's structure, lock down Rice and Odegaard, and push Mbappe to the right flank to target Leandro Trossard or Kivior. Both lacking in top-level defensive experience, Real will count on rapid counter-pressing, lightning-fast transitions, and set-piece dominance, especially with Gabriel out, a key aerial presence for Arsenal. In Arteta's system, Saka and Martinelli stretch wide, always ready to go one-on-one. Odegaard and Rice control the central lanes, constantly drifting between lines and exploiting gaps. Even Mikel Merino at times pushes up like a false 9, forcing Real's backline to choose between marking and maintaining shape. This intricate Arsenal system creates dangerous attacking triangles on both wings and opens huge channels for Rice and Odegaard to surge from deep. They press early, play with a high line, and seamlessly shift from a 4-3-3 into a 3-2-5 when Partey drops in, pinning opponents back near their own box. That's why, in the return leg, Ancelotti has to think differently. He might tighten the midfield using Kroos and Modric in parallel roles, one shadowing players, the other intercepting passes, to neutralize second-line breakthroughs. When Partey steps forward, the space behind him becomes a target zone, where Jude Bellingham could deliver defense-splitting passes, like a vintage Fabregas. Out wide, you can't handle Saka and Martinelli in one-on-ones. On the left, Bellingham must drop deep for support. On the right, Rodrigo and Valverde will double up to create a 2-versus-1 scenario. This not only counters the flank threat, but also tempts Arsenal to push up, exposing the very space Real needs for their deadliest weapon, the counterattack. If Real can break through Arsenal's first pressing wave, the rest of the pitch becomes a playground for pace and power. Expect Ancelotti to instruct his center-backs to launch long diagonal balls early to Mbappé or Rodrigo, players who hug the touchline, waiting to explode. Mbappé will likely drift right and team up with Rodrigo to hammer Arsenal's left side, where Kiwior and Trossard may struggle under pressure. It's no coincidence that Real's few dangerous chances in the first leg came from fast breaks. That's the only path to disrupt Arteta's control-heavy approach. Set pieces will also be key, as Arsenal's aerial coverage suffers without Gabriel. This is the battlefield now. Tactics versus instinct, structure versus chaos, numbers versus belief. And when the lights go down and the anthem plays, Real Madrid knows exactly how to make the impossible real. Even with Arsenal's backline remaining well-organized, they still show cracks whenever they're forced onto the back foot, especially when dealing with counterattacks. The vulnerability often lies in the wide areas, and if Arsenal focus solely on shutting down Bellingham, Vinicius, or Mbappe, they might fall into Real Madrid's classic trap, where the secondary names suddenly ignite the fireworks. Brahim Diaz could be the spark when things stall, and Fran Garcia, less glamorous than Alaba, might be the more pragmatic pick to deal directly with Martinelli. When chaos takes over, Luka Modric remains a rock, and if all eyes are fixed on Vinicius, it might just be Rodrigo, the man who sent Man City into despair, who slips through and explodes. And of course, you can't leave out Thibaut Courtois, the goalkeeper who kept Real Madrid alive in the first leg. No matter the scenario, the Belgian shot-stopper is still one of Real's most crucial weapons. This Real Madrid squad isn't the flawless machine of their legendary predecessors, but in the Champions League they always carry those hidden cards. Players you underestimate at your own peril. One of them is Brahim Diaz, who didn't feature in the first leg at the Emirates, but could very well be the key to unlocking Arsenal in the return leg. In tight matches, or when the game needs a jolt, Diaz is one of the rare Real players who thrives in tight spaces, escapes pressing with either foot, and fluidly moves between the lines. His ability to disrupt Arsenal's carefully structured defense makes him a constant threat. Another surprise candidate? Fran Garcia. In the first leg, David Alaba was chosen at left-back but struggled against Saka, partly due to fitness issues and partly because it's been a while since he played that role consistently. If Ancelotti chooses Garcia to start, it would be a sensible move. Though less experienced, Fran offers better pace and one-on-one defending right now, exactly what's needed against a quick, skillful player like Saka. Back in midfield, Modric may not be the central figure he once was, but in moments of disorder he still brings calm. Against an intense pressing side like Arsenal, he's one of the few who can escape pressure with a single touch and instantly trigger a counter. If he's subbed on when Arsenal drop deeper, the Croatian veteran can become an emotional anchor, slowing the tempo when needed or firing off shots that destabilize the defensive line. Rodrigo may have had a quiet first leg, but he remains a potential game-changer at the Bernabeu. If Real takes more control of possession, the Brazilian will likely operate closer to goal, looking to attack the space between Arsenal's left-back and left center-back, an area where Kiwior has often looked vulnerable against speed and finesse.